The massive space station hung in orbit around a purple star. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every day. Today, the Galactic Council was waiting for something special. They were about to meet humans for the first time. Ambassador Velthor stood at the viewing window of the docking bay. He was a Kree, an insect-like being with 4 arms and compound eyes. He had served on the council for 20 years and had seen many new species join their group. Most came nervous and eager to please. Most accepted whatever terms the council offered. The human ship approached slowly. It was sleek and dark, unlike the colorful vessels of other species. No decorations, no symbols, just smooth black metal that seemed to absorb light. Velthor clicked his mandibles in amusement. These humans were so new to space travel. They had only discovered faster-than-light technology 30 years ago. They were practically children compared to species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. 6 humans stepped out onto the platform. Velthor had seen images of humans before, but seeing them in person was different. They were all wearing identical dark suits, perfectly tailored and pressed. Each carried a slim briefcase. They moved together in a way that seemed almost choreographed, like a single organism with 6 parts. The leader stepped forward first. He was tall, with short brown hair that was going gray at the temples. His eyes were ice blue and scanned the entire docking bay in 3 seconds. He smiled and extended his hand. "Ambassador Velthor, I presume. I'm John Carter, Chief Diplomatic Officer for Earth." His grip was firm, almost too firm. Velthor felt his exoskeleton creak slightly from the pressure. "Welcome to Helios Station," Velthor said, pulling his hand back carefully. "These are your colleagues?" "Yes, this is Lisa Morgan, our cultural liaison." A woman with dark hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. She nodded but did not smile. Her stance reminded Velthor of soldiers he had seen, weight balanced and ready to move. "Greg Walsh, Economic Advisor." A stocky man with red hair and freckles. His eyes never stopped moving, taking in every detail. "Amy Peterson, Legal Counsel." A blonde woman who looked young but moved with absolute confidence. "Ryan Blake, Technology Specialist." A man with dark skin and a friendly smile that somehow made Velthor more nervous, not less. And Kate Sullivan, Medical and Scientific Advisor. A woman with auburn hair pulled back tightly, whose hands hung loose at her sides in a way that suggested they could move very quickly if needed. They all nodded politely. They all had the same look in their eyes, watchful, calculating, patient. "Please follow me," Velthor said. "The council is eager to meet you." As they walked through the station corridors, Velthor noticed things. The humans walked in a specific formation. John Carter in front, Lisa Morgan and Greg Walsh on the sides, slightly behind, Amy Peterson and Ryan Blake flanking the rear, Kate Sullivan in the protected center but constantly turning her head. They never bunched together. They always kept space between them. When they passed doorways, one would glance inside while the others kept moving. It was the walk of people expecting danger, of people who had been in dangerous places before. The station was designed to impress visitors. Soaring ceilings, transparent walls showing the purple nebula outside, floating gardens with plants from 50 worlds. Most new species gasped in wonder at their first sight of it. The humans barely glanced around. Their eyes kept tracking the security cameras, the guard positions, the emergency exits. John Carter asked polite questions about the architecture, but Lisa Morgan was counting doors. Greg Walsh was noting the guard rotation schedule. Amy Peterson had already identified which security stations they had passed and how many guards were at each. Velthor felt a small twinge of unease. These did not seem like typical diplomats. They reached the council chamber, a huge circular room with seats for representatives from all 12 major species. The chamber was half full. This was just the welcoming committee. The real negotiations would come later. The humans were given seats at the center table. Food and drinks had been prepared, matching what Earth had transmitted as human dietary needs. John Carter thanked them politely and took a sip of water. The others did not eat or drink. They sat calmly, hands folded, watching. The welcoming speeches began. Each council member took a turn talking about peace and cooperation and the great family of galactic civilization. The humans listened without interrupting. John Carter took notes on a paper pad with an actual pen. Most species had stopped using such primitive tools centuries ago. When it was his turn to speak, John Carter stood slowly. His movements were economical, like he never wasted energy. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we thank the Council for this invitation. We look forward to learning from your wisdom and experience. We come in peace, seeking friendship and mutual benefit. His words were perfect. His tone was warm. But something about the way he said it made Velthor think of predators he had seen in nature documentaries, the ones that could sit perfectly still for hours, then strike faster than thought. After the ceremony, there was a social hour. Council members mingled with the humans, asking questions about Earth. Where was it located? What were humans like? What did they want from the Council? The humans answered every question pleasantly. They shared information about their world freely. They talked about Earth's oceans and mountains. They described human cities and culture. They seemed open and honest. But Velthor noticed other things. While Ryan Blake chatted with a Thelian diplomat about human music, his eyes were watching the Vynar military attaché across the room. While Kate Sullivan discussed human medicine with a doctor from Andros, she positioned herself where she could see both doors. Every human was having a conversation while simultaneously conducting surveillance. Lisa Morgan approached Velthor with a smile. "Your station is beautiful," she said. "How long did it take to build?" 15 years, Velthor replied. "It was a collaborative effort by 6 species." "Impressive. And how many people can it hold?" "At full capacity, about 50,000. "And the security force?" Velthor paused. That was an odd question for a cultural liaison. "About 500 guards? Why do you ask?" "Just curious about how such a large facility operates," Lisa said smoothly. "On Earth, we're always interested in learning from others." But Velthor knew she was memorizing the number, filing it away for later use. As the social hour ended, the humans were escorted to their quarters. They would rest, then negotiations would begin tomorrow. Velthor watched them leave, still moving in that same careful formation. He returned to his office and pulled up the files Earth had sent. Standard diplomatic information, population numbers, economic data, cultural overview. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. But Velthor had been in politics a long time. He knew when something did not add up. These humans said they came in peace, and maybe they did, but they moved like soldiers. They watched like spies. They calculated like strategists. Earth had been invited to send diplomats. Velthor was starting to suspect they had sent something else entirely, something much more dangerous. He thought about the way John Carter had gripped his hand, about the way the humans never let their guard down for even a second, about the 1,000 small details they had observed and cataloged in just 1 hour on the station. Velthor called up Earth's file again and read it more carefully. Humans were persistence hunters, the file said. Apex predators from a death world. They had evolved by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had fought wars that killed millions of their own kind and somehow grown stronger from it. The Grand Chamber was designed to intimidate. The walls were transparent, showing the swirling purple gases of the star outside. The table was enormous, carved from a single piece of crystal from a dead world. 12 species sat in their designated seats, each position carefully chosen to show their importance in the council hierarchy. The humans were given seats near the bottom of the circle, the worst position, the place reserved for supplicants and those who needed favors. John Carter sat down without comment. The other 5 humans took their positions behind him, standing at attention like bodyguards or assistants. Velthor opened the session with traditional words of welcome. Then the real business began. The Kree Collective presented the terms first. As the oldest member of the council, they always went first. Earth will be granted provisional membership, Velthor announced. This means limited voting rights on non-essential matters only. He slid a datapad across the table to John Carter. These are the standard trade agreements. Earth will have access to council markets with a 40% tariff on all goods. Council members will have access to Earth markets with a 5% tariff. John Carter picked up the pad and read it slowly. His face showed nothing. Behind him, Lisa Morgan's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Greg Walsh's fingers drummed once on his briefcase, then stopped. The Thelian Concordat went next. Their representative was a tall being with silver skin and too many joints in their arms. Earth vessels will be restricted to approved trade routes only. Travel to 70% of council space will require special permits that take 6 months to process. The Vinar Unity added their terms. Technology sharing will be mandatory. Earth will provide all research and development to the council for review. Council members will share technology with Earth at their discretion. The terms kept coming. Each one was worse than the last. Restrictions on Earth's military. Limits on colony expansion. Requirements to host council observers on human worlds. The right of council ships to enter Earth space without permission. John Carter listened to everything. He took notes on his paper pad in neat, small handwriting. He did not interrupt. He did not object. He just wrote and listened and occasionally turned pages. The other council members started to relax. This was going exactly as planned. They had offered these same terms to 3 other species in the past decade. The Qualan had accepted immediately, desperate for council protection. The Hexar had argued for 2 weeks before accepting slightly better terms. The Droth had refused and withdrawn from council space entirely, their economy collapsing within a year. The humans would accept. Everyone accepted eventually. They needed the council more than the council needed them. After 2 hours of presentations, Velthor leaned back in his seat. Earth has 3 days to review these terms and provide your response. Are there any immediate questions? John Carter closed his notebook and stood. He buttoned his suit jacket with calm, precise movements. Yes, I have a question. Do you think we're stupid? The chamber went silent. Several council members made sounds of surprise in their various languages. Velthor felt his antennae twitch in confusion. I don't understand. Let me rephrase, John Carter said, his voice pleasant and even. Do you think humans are so desperate or so ignorant that we would accept terms designed to make us a vassal state rather than a true member of this council? The Thelian representative made a dismissive gesture. These are standard terms for new members. If you find them unacceptable, you are free to decline council membership. Oh, we're going to decline these terms, John Carter agreed. But we're not leaving. Instead, we're going to present our own terms. Lisa? Lisa Morgan stepped forward and placed a datapad on the table. She pressed a button and a hologram sprang to life above the crystal surface. It showed financial records, thousands of them, transactions, account numbers, dates, and amounts. The Kree Collective has been embezzling from the Council General Fund for 6 years, Lisa said calmly. Approximately 2 billion credits have been diverted to private accounts controlled by senior Kree officials. We have tracked every transaction. Velthor shot to his feet. This is outrageous. These accusations are accurate, Greg Walsh interrupted. He placed another datapad down. More holograms appeared. We have the account numbers. the shell companies, the fake contracts. We even have recorded conversations between the officials involved. Would you like us to play them? The chamber erupted. Velthor was shouting denials. Other Kree members were demanding to see the evidence. Some council members looked shocked. Others looked worried about what might come next. John Carter waited for the noise to die down. When it did not, he simply spoke louder. That's just the first item. Should we continue? The room went quiet again. Amy Peterson stepped forward next. The Thelian Concordat has been conducting weapons testing in the Outer Rim in violation of Council law. Specifically, biological weapons designed to target species with silicon-based biology. We have surveillance footage of 3 test sites and records of 12 test subjects who did not survive. The Thelian representative's silver skin turned dark gray. How could you possibly have such information? We asked nicely, Ryan Blake said with a friendly smile. Also, we've had ships in your space for 5 years. Small ships, quiet ships. Ships you never noticed because you weren't looking for them. Kate Sullivan added the next piece. The Vinar Unity has been secretly enslaving pre-spaceflight species on 7 worlds in the Gamma sector. You've been harvesting their labor and resources while they think you're gods visiting from the sky. We have video evidence. We also have testimony from 3 Vinar officials who were willing to talk to us in exchange for immunity. The Vinar representatives were standing now, all 3 of them shouting at once. Denials mixed with threats mixed with demands to know who had betrayed them. John Carter let them shout. He waited patiently, hands folded, until they ran out of energy. Then he continued as if nothing had happened. The Quallen have been conducting illegal mining operations in neutral space. The Hexar military has been receiving kickbacks from weapons manufacturers in exchange for preferential contracts. The Andros delegation has been falsifying environmental reports to hide pollution violations. The Draxan trade minister has been taking bribes from smugglers. The Zenthar representative has been selling council intelligence to private corporations. With each accusation, another datapad appeared on the table. More holograms, more evidence, financial records, video footage, intercepted communications, audio recordings. The council members looked at each other in growing horror. Every single species represented had something to hide. And somehow, these humans knew all of it. Velthor collapsed back into his seat. His mind was racing. How was this possible? The council had been together for 200 years. Their intelligence services were sophisticated. Their security was tight. How had a species that had only been in space for 30 years penetrated so deeply? How long have you been spying on us? He asked quietly. Since the day you first made contact with Earth, Lisa Morgan replied. You sent a delegation to our solar system 15 years ago. You thought you were making first contact with a primitive species. We thought we were being scouted by potential enemies, so we prepared. Greg Walsh continued the explanation. We built ships you couldn't detect. We learned your languages. We hacked your networks. We placed operatives in your space. We watched and we listened and we learned. For 15 years, we studied every species in the council, your strengths, your weaknesses, your secrets. Amy Peterson's voice was matter-of-fact. On Earth, we have a saying, knowledge is power. We figured if we were going to join galactic civilization, we should know exactly what we were joining. Turns out, we were right to be cautious. Ryan Blake leaned forward, his friendly smile never wavering. Now here's what's going to happen. Earth will join the Council as a full member with complete voting rights. Trade will be conducted on fair and equal terms. Technology sharing will be mutual and voluntary. Our ships will have the same access to Council space as any other member. Our colonies will be subject to the same regulations as everyone else's, no more restrictive. Kate Sullivan added, and all of these secrets we've discovered, they stay secret. We're not interested in blackmail or starting wars. We just want to be treated fairly. John Carter walked slowly around the table, making eye contact with each council member. We understand how politics works. Everyone has things they'd rather keep hidden. We're not here to judge. We're here to make sure Earth gets a fair deal. Give us that, and your secrets die with us. Try to cheat us. Try to manipulate us. Try to treat us like fools, and every piece of evidence we've gathered gets released to the entire galaxy. He stopped at Velthor's position. Earth doesn't want to be your enemy, but we won't be your victim either. We're offering you a choice. Accept us as equals, or watch your council tear itself apart from the inside. What will it be? The chamber was silent for a long moment. Velthor looked at the other council members. He saw fear, he saw anger, he saw calculation. But mostly he saw acceptance. The humans had them completely trapped. I call for a vote, Velthor said quietly. All in favor of accepting Earth's counter-proposal? 3 weeks had passed since Earth joined the Council. The humans had set up a small office on Helios Station. They attended meetings. They reviewed trade proposals. They acted like proper diplomats. But the other council members had not forgotten what happened in the negotiation chamber. They watched the humans carefully now, with new respect and new fear. It was during a routine council session that the pirate problem came up again. The Kalari pirates had struck another convoy in the Outer Rim, 15 ships destroyed, hundreds of crew members dead or captured, millions of credits in cargo lost. The council discussed the issue the way they always did: more patrols, better sensors, increased security on shipping routes, the same solutions they had been trying for 30 years, the same solutions that never worked. John Carter listened to the discussion for an hour before he finally spoke. Excuse me, but how long has this pirate group been operating? Velthor checked his records. The Kalari pirates first appeared 43 years ago. They have been a persistent problem ever since. 43 years, John Carter repeated slowly. And they're still operating? They are very skilled at evading capture, the Thelian representative explained. Their leader, Zixtal, is a tactical genius. He strikes quickly and disappears before military forces can respond. We have tried many strategies to stop him. John Carter looked at Lisa Morgan. Something passed between them without words. Then he turned back to the council. With respect, I don't think you understand the problem you're dealing with. And you do? The Vinar military commander sounded skeptical. You've been in space for 30 years. We've been hunting these pirates for longer than that. That's exactly the problem, Greg Walsh said. You've been thinking about this like a military problem. Deploy forces, set up patrols, react to attacks. But it's not a military problem. Then what is it? Velthor asked. It's a hunting problem, Amy Peterson said simply. The council members looked confused. John Carter stood and walked to the holographic display in the center of the room. He pulled up a map of the Outer Rim. Red dots showed pirate attacks over the past 5 years. There were hundreds of them scattered across dozens of systems. You've been trying to catch them in the act, John Carter said. You send ships to patrol shipping lanes hoping to intercept them during a raid. But by the time you arrive, they're gone. You're chasing ghosts. Ryan Blake added, On Earth, when you hunt dangerous prey, you don't chase it across open ground. You find where it lives, where it eats, where it feels safe. Then you go there and wait. We don't know where their base is, Velthor protested. We've searched for decades. Because you've been looking in the wrong places, Kate Sullivan said. You've been searching the Outer Rim where the attacks happen. But that's not where they live. Lisa Morgan pulled up new data. We've been analyzing the pirate attacks, not where they happen, but what they steal. Weapons, medicine, food, ship parts. These are all things that need to be sold or used. The pirates aren't keeping this stuff. They're selling it. To who? The Thelian representative asked. That's what we're going to find out, John Carter said. Give us 2 weeks. If we can't locate the pirate base and shut down their operation, we'll step back and let you handle it your way." The council was skeptical, but they also had nothing to lose. They voted to let the humans try. The 6 humans left Helios Station the next day, but they did not go to the Outer Rim. Instead, their ship headed straight for the core worlds, the safest and most civilized part of Council space. Greg Walsh explained their strategy to his team. Pirates need 3 things to operate. They need weapons and supplies. They need someone to buy their stolen goods, and they need banks to hide their money. All of that happens in civilized space, not out in the frontier. They started with weapons dealers. Lisa Morgan and Kate Sullivan posed as smugglers looking to buy illegal arms. They visited 5 dealers in 3 days. At each stop, they acted naive and asked lots of questions. The dealers thought they were easy targets. They talked freely, showing off their inventory and bragging about their connections. The humans recorded everything: names, locations, supply chains. By the end of 3 days, they had mapped the entire illegal weapons network in the sector. Next, they tracked the stolen goods. Amy Peterson had a gift for data analysis. She pulled shipping records from a dozen ports and found patterns. Certain merchants received shipments from the Outer Rim on a regular schedule, shipments with vague descriptions and no clear origin, shipments that arrived right after pirate raids. Ryan Blake handled the financial investigation. He was an expert at following money through complex networks. He found the shell companies and fake accounts. He tracked payments backward through layers of deception. Within a week, he had identified every fence and money launderer the pirates used. The picture came together quickly. The pirates would raid a convoy in the Outer Rim, then bring the stolen goods to contacts in the core worlds. These contacts would sell the goods to legitimate merchants who did not ask questions. The money would be washed through fake companies and eventually transferred back to the pirates. But where were the pirates based? That was the final piece of the puzzle. John Carter studied the data for 2 days straight. He looked at shipping times, travel distances, patterns of activity. The pirates could hit targets across a wide area, but they always disappeared quickly. That meant their base had to be central, close enough to reach multiple systems but hidden enough to avoid detection. He called the team together. "They're in the Kelvin field," he announced, pointing to an asteroid field marked as hazardous on all navigation charts. The council dismissed it as too dangerous for sustained occupation, but I think that's exactly why the pirates chose it. "How do we confirm it?" Lisa Morgan asked. "We go there and look," John Carter said simply. The human ship was small and agile, designed for stealth. It slipped into the Kelvin field without broadcasting any signals. The asteroids were dense, and the space was full of radiation that interfered with sensors. Perfect place to hide. It took 6 hours of careful searching before they found it. A massive asteroid, hollowed out and converted into a base. Docking bays carved into the rock. Energy signatures indicating hundreds of people inside. This was it. The pirate stronghold that the council had been searching for decades. "So now we call for backup?" Kate Sullivan asked. John Carter smiled. "No, now we go in." The others looked at him. "There are 6 of us and probably 300 pirates in there," Greg Walsh pointed out. "Exactly," John Carter said. "They'll never expect an attack from a force this small. That's our advantage." They docked at one of the smaller bays, using forged credentials that identified them as black market buyers. The guards barely looked at their papers. Smugglers and criminals came through here all the time. The 6 humans walked into the station wearing their suits and carrying their briefcases. They looked like business people, soft, harmless, easy targets. They went straight to the trading floor where merchants sold stolen goods. Lisa Morgan and Amy Peterson started asking about ship parts, acting like they were looking for a large purchase. While they distracted the merchants, Greg Walsh placed small devices on the support columns throughout the room. Tiny things, barely visible, signal jammers that would activate on command. Ryan Blake headed to the bar, buying drinks and chatting with off-duty pirates. He was friendly and asked innocent questions. "Where's the best place to eat on the station? How long have you worked here? What's the boss like?" The pirates told him everything, thinking he was just another criminal looking to make connections. Kate Sullivan visited the medical bay, claiming she needed supplies for her ship. While the medic was showing her inventory, she hacked into the station systems through a terminal in the corner. Within minutes, she had access to everything: security cameras, life support, communications, power systems. John Carter went straight to the command center. He walked in like he belonged there, carrying a briefcase and wearing an ID badge he had stolen from a guard. He nodded at the security officers and sat down at an empty terminal. Nobody questioned him. Why would they? He looked like another administrator. 1 hour after entering the station, the humans were in position. John Carter sent a single signal from his terminal. The signal jammers activated. Communications throughout the station went dead. The security system locked down, sealing bulkheads and trapping pirates in their current locations. Life support stayed active, but lighting switched to emergency mode. The entire base went into lockdown, and nobody knew why. Chaos erupted. Pirates ran through corridors trying to figure out what was happening. Guards rushed toward the command center. Alarms blared. The humans moved through the confusion like ghosts. They had studied the station layout during their first hour inside. They knew where the key systems were, where the armory was located, where the backup generators were, where Zixtal's personal quarters were. They did not fight unless they had to. When they did fight, it was quick and efficient, a stun weapon from close range. A pressure point strike that dropped the target instantly. They moved fast, using the chaos they had created to stay ahead of organized resistance. Greg Walsh and Amy Peterson took the armory. They locked it down and disabled the weapons inside. No firearms available meant no firefight possible. Lisa Morgan and Kate Sullivan secured the main power center. They didn't shut it down completely, just reduced it enough to keep the lights dim and the systems confused. Ryan Blake went to the docking bays and locked them. No ships could leave. The pirates were trapped on their own station. John Carter headed straight for Zixtal's location. The pirate lord was in his command center, surrounded by guards, trying to regain control of his base. He was shouting orders and demanding reports. Nobody had answers. John Carter walked in through a maintenance entrance. His stun weapon took down 2 guards before anyone realized he was there. 2 more guards went down in hand-to-hand combat that lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then John Carter was standing in front of Zixtal, holding a gun taken from one of the guards. "Hello," John Carter said pleasantly. "I'm here to discuss your retirement." Zixtal looked at him in shock. This single human in a business suit had somehow infiltrated his station and fought his way to the command center. "Who are you?" "Chief Diplomatic Officer for Earth," John Carter replied. "And you're under arrest." The whole operation took 3 hours. 6 humans had infiltrated a pirate base. The capture of the Kalari pirates changed everything. Overnight, Earth's reputation in the Council shifted from curiosity to genuine respect mixed with fear. Species that had dismissed humans as weak newcomers now watched them with wary eyes. The 6 humans in business suits had accomplished what the entire Council military had failed to do for decades. But not everyone was impressed. The Thex Dominion had watched these developments with growing concern. The Thex were the Council's primary military power, and they did not appreciate being shown up by a species they considered inferior. The Thex were apex predators from a heavy-gravity world. They stood over 7 feet tall with thick muscles, natural armor plating on their skin, and retractable claws that could tear through steel. They had conquered 12 systems through military strength and had served as the Council's security force for a century. Their supreme commander, Krethnal, was a legendary warrior who had never been defeated in combat. Krethnal did not like humans. They were small and soft with no natural weapons. Yet somehow they had waltzed into a pirate base and won without firing a shot. It was embarrassing. It made the Theks look weak. He decided to put the humans in their place. The challenge came during a formal council dinner. These events were usually boring affairs with speeches and diplomatic small talk. But tonight, Krethnal stood and addressed John Carter directly across the banquet hall. "Human," Krethnal's voice rumbled like thunder. "Your recent success against criminals has been noted. But criminals are weak prey. I wonder how you would fare against true warriors." The hall went silent. Everyone knew what was coming. John Carter set down his fork and looked up calmly. "Is there something specific you want to say, Commander?" "I challenge you to participate in the Hunt of Proving," Krethnal announced. "It is an ancient Theks tradition where warriors demonstrate their worth by tracking and capturing dangerous prey, unless, of course, you lack the courage." It was a calculated insult. The Hunt of Proving was designed for Theks physiology. The prey animals were from Theks worlds, adapted to heavy gravity and aggressive behavior. Most species in the Council would have politely declined such a challenge. It was understood that different species had different strengths. Lisa Morgan leaned close to John and whispered, "You don't have to do this. It's a trap." John Carter was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled and stood up. "Commander Krethnal, I accept your challenge." The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. Velthor looked concerned. Even some of the Theks warriors looked surprised. They had expected the human to decline or make excuses. Krethnal's eyes gleamed. "Excellent! The hunt will take place in 5 days on our colony world of Theks Prime. I will select your prey personally." Over the next 5 days, the human delegation tried to prepare John for what was coming. Greg Walsh pulled up everything he could find about the Hunt of Proving. It was brutal. Hunters were dropped into a wilderness preserve filled with dangerous predators. Each hunter had to track a specific prey animal marked with a beacon. First one to capture their prey and return alive won. The prey animals were nightmares. The data files showed creatures with armor, claws, venom, and pack-hunting instincts. Some weighed over 2 tons. Some could run at 60 miles per hour. All of them could kill a human easily. "Krethnal is going to choose the most dangerous animal in the preserve," Amy Peterson said. "He wants you to fail, or worse, get killed." John Carter was cleaning a rifle, checking its mechanisms with practiced ease. "Probably. You could still back out," Kate Sullivan suggested. "Claim injury or diplomatic duties." "No." John Carter's voice was firm. "The Theks respect strength. If I back down, Earth loses credibility. Besides, I didn't come all the way to space just to hide from a big lizard." Ryan Blake laughed. "You grew up hunting in Montana, right? How big were the bears there?" "Big enough," John said with a slight smile. "This is just another hunt. Different planet, same principles." 5 days later, John Carter stood on Theks Prime. The colony world was beautiful in a harsh way. Red stone cliffs, dense forests with purple vegetation, gravity about 30% higher than Earth standard. The air was thick and hot. The hunting preserve covered 1,000 square miles of wilderness. 50 Theks warriors had gathered to watch, along with several council observers. Krethnal stood at the center, looking confident and pleased with himself. "The rules are simple," Krethnal announced. "Each hunter will pursue a prey animal marked with a tracking beacon. First to capture their prey and return here wins. You may use any methods you choose. You may not kill the prey. Capture only." He turned to John Carter. "Human, I have selected your prey with great care. You will hunt a razorback alpha. It is the most dangerous predator in this preserve. It weighs 4 tons, can run at great speed, and has killed 3 Theks warriors in previous hunts. If you wish to withdraw, now is the time." John Carter checked his equipment one more time. Light body armor, a tranquilizer rifle, a knife, water, and basic supplies. He looked up at the massive Thex warrior. "I'm ready when you are, Commander." Krethnal gave him a device that showed the tracking beacon's location. "The hunt begins at dawn. May your gods protect you because nothing else will." Dawn came, cold and gray. John Carter entered the preserve while the others watched on monitors. The Razorback Alpha's beacon was 15 miles northeast, deep in the Rocky Badlands. The creature had been released 6 hours earlier and had a significant head start. Krethnal entered the preserve from a different location, hunting his own prey. He chose a stormcat, a fast and aggressive predator, but nowhere near as dangerous as the Razorback. He planned to finish quickly and return in triumph while the human was still stumbling through the wilderness. The observers settled in to watch. Most expected the hunt to end badly for John Carter. The Razorback Alpha was not just dangerous, it was smart and experienced. It had survived multiple hunts and had learned to recognize hunters as threats. John Carter moved through the forest at a steady jog, not running, not walking, just a constant ground-eating pace. He followed the beacon signal, but he also watched the ground. Broken branches, disturbed leaves, claw marks on trees. The Razorback was large and left obvious tracks. After 2 hours, he found fresh droppings, still warm. He examined them carefully, then kept moving. The terrain got rougher, rocky slopes, dense underbrush. The gravity made everything harder, but John Carter kept his pace steady. He had trained in high-altitude environments before. He knew how to manage his breathing and energy. He found the Razorback's resting spot around noon, a small cave where the creature had slept. John Carter studied the area carefully. The animal had stayed here for less than an hour before moving on. It was nervous. It knew something was following it. Good. John Carter kept tracking. The Razorback was moving northeast, toward the river. It would need water. All creatures needed water. That made them predictable. Meanwhile, Krethnal had caught up to his stormcat after 3 hours. The creature fought hard. But the Thex commander was stronger and faster. He subdued it with his bare hands and began the return journey, confident of victory. But when he checked the monitor showing John Carter's progress, he was surprised. The human had not given up. In fact, he was still moving at that same steady pace, still tracking the Razorback, still hunting. Krethnal felt the first stirring of doubt. That pace, that relentless forward motion. It reminded him of something from his own world's history. Before the Thex had evolved into apex predators, there had been another species on their planet. Persistence hunters. Animals that were not fast or strong, but simply never stopped following their prey. They would track an animal for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. The Thex had driven that species to extinction thousands of years ago. Krethnal had almost forgotten they ever existed. John Carter found the Razorback at the river 6 hours into the hunt. The massive creature was drinking, its 4-ton bulk creating ripples across the water. Its armored hide was dark gray, and its claws left deep gouges in the riverbank. When it sensed John's presence, it turned and roared. John Carter did not shoot. He simply stood there, visible and watching. The Razorback charged, covering 100 yards in seconds, but John Carter was already moving, not away but to the side, keeping trees between him and the creature. The Razorback skidded to a stop and roared again. John Carter jogged away at his steady pace. The creature followed. For the next 4 hours, John Carter led the Razorback on a chase through the preserve. He never ran at full speed. He just maintained that same tireless pace. The Razorback would charge, and John would evade. Then he would slow down, letting the creature catch up, then evade again. The pattern repeated over and over. The Razorback was faster and stronger, but it was also much heavier. Every charge burned energy. Every pursuit in the heavy gravity taxed its massive muscles. John Carter's own muscles burned. His lungs ached from the thick air and high gravity. But he had trained for this his entire life. Endurance, persistence, the refusal to quit. After 8 hours of continuous movement, the Razorback started to slow. Its charges were less aggressive. Its roars were weaker. The creature was exhausted, unable to understand why this small prey would not stop moving. After 10 hours, the Razorback collapsed. It lay on the ground, sides heaving, unable to continue. John Carter approached carefully and shot it with a tranquilizer dart. The sedative took effect quickly. He sat down next to the unconscious creature and caught his breath. Then he activated his communicator. "Carter to base. Prey secured. Coordinates uploaded. Send recovery team." Crethnail had returned 7 hours earlier. He had been watching John Carter's hunt on the monitors with growing amazement and horror. When the human finally called in his success, Crethnail felt something he had not experienced in his entire military career. He felt like prey. John Carter was extracted along with the sedated Razorback. He arrived at base camp exhausted, dirty, and triumphant. The Thex warriors watched him with new respect. They understood now. This human had not used superior strength or speed. He had used something more terrifying: pure, relentless persistence. 6 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council. The human delegation had settled into a routine. They attended meetings. They negotiated trade agreements. They participated in council business like any other member species. But everyone was still careful around them, still wary. The humans had proven themselves dangerous in ways the council had not expected. They had turned negotiations into psychological warfare. They had solved a decades-old pirate problem in 2 weeks. They had beaten the Thex at their own game. And they had done all of it while wearing business suits and maintaining perfect diplomatic courtesy. But nobody really understood them. Not yet. Velthor decided it was time to ask directly. He invited John Carter to a private dinner at an exclusive restaurant on Helios Station. Just the two of them. No formalities, no politics, just conversation. They sat at a table overlooking the purple star through the transparent walls. Velthor ordered food from his homeworld. John Carter ordered something simple and human. They made small talk about council business for a while, but both knew that was not why they were here. Finally, Velthor set down his drink and asked the question that had been bothering him for months. "Who are you people, really?" John Carter smiled slightly. "You want the truth?" "Please." John Carter leaned back in his chair and seemed to consider his words carefully. "All right, my name is John Carter. That part is true, and I am Earth's chief diplomatic officer. That's also true. But before I got this job, I spent 15 years in special operations." He paused, then continued. "I led teams into hostile territory to rescue prisoners. I conducted counter-terrorism operations in 3 different war zones. I've been shot twice, stabbed once, and blown up more times than I can count. I've operated in 40 different countries under 30 different identities. My job was to go into impossible situations and find ways to win." Velthor felt his antennae go very still. "And the others?" "Lisa Morgan was a field agent for our intelligence services. She specialized in infiltration and information gathering. She can speak 12 languages fluently and can adopt the mannerisms of almost any culture. She's operated undercover in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. Her official kill count is classified, but it's not 0. John Carter took a sip of his drink before continuing. Greg Walsh was a military strategist. He planned operations across multiple theaters of conflict. He's the one who figured out how to find the pirate base. That took him about 6 hours of analysis. He sees patterns other people miss. Amy Peterson was a sniper. She has 237 confirmed kills. She can shoot a target from over a mile away in high wind. She's also trained in hand-to-hand combat and explosive ordnance disposal. She's probably the most dangerous person in this station right now, and nobody would know it by looking at her. Ryan Blake worked in psychological operations. His job was to understand how people think and use that knowledge to achieve objectives. He can read a person in 30 seconds and know exactly what will motivate them or scare them or make them trust him. He convinced 6 pirate lieutenants to betray their boss in under an hour. Kate Sullivan was a combat medic. She's performed surgery under fire more times than she can remember. She's also trained in toxicology, biology, and xenobiology. She knows a dozen ways to kill someone that look like natural causes. She prefers healing people, but she knows the opposite just as well. Velthor felt cold despite the warm restaurant. The council invited Earth to send diplomats. And we did, John Carter said calmly. We just happened to be diplomats who used to do other things. When your invitation came, Earth's government had to make a decision. We didn't know what we were walking into. Was the council peaceful and welcoming? Were they predators looking for easy prey? Would they try to exploit us? Would they threaten us? He leaned forward slightly. So we sent people who could handle any situation. People who could negotiate in good faith if the council was honorable. People who could fight back if the council was hostile. People who could adapt to whatever we encountered. We sent hunters who learned to wear suits. Lisa Morgan had appeared at some point during the conversation. She sat down at the table without asking. The council is made up mostly of species that evolved from prey animals, she said. Herd creatures. Social animals that survived by cooperation and consensus. That's why your politics work the way they do. Everyone tries to avoid conflict. Everyone tries to keep the peace. Nobody wants to make waves. Greg Walsh joined them, also uninvited. That's not wrong, by the way. It's actually a strength in many situations. But it also makes you vulnerable to predators. Real ones, like the pirates, or political ones, like the Theks, using military power to dominate council decisions. Amy Peterson appeared next. Humans are different. We evolved as both prey and predators. Early in our history, we were hunted by bigger, stronger animals. So we learned to be careful, to watch for threats, to prepare for danger. But we also became hunters ourselves. We developed tools and strategies and cooperation that let us take down prey much larger than us. Ryan Blake added his perspective. Every human civilization has a warrior tradition, not because we're violent by nature, but because we needed to be ready to fight, to defend ourselves and our families and our communities. War is terrible, but humans have been doing it for thousands of years. We understand violence in a way that most council species don't. Kate Sullivan was the last to arrive. When Earth decided to join galactic civilization, we had to figure out how to represent ourselves. We could pretend to be something we're not, act harmless and peaceful, and hope nobody takes advantage of us. Or we could be honest about what we are. John Carter continued the thought. We chose honesty. We wear suits because that's what diplomacy requires. We learn your customs and respect your traditions. We negotiate in good faith and try to find peaceful solutions. But underneath the suits, we're still the species that survived ice ages and plagues and predators. We're still the species that went from living in caves to building starships in 10,000 years. Velthor looked at the 6 humans sitting around his table. They had come one by one, without plan or signal. But now they sat in that same protective formation they always used, watching exits, monitoring the room, ready for anything. So when Earth sent diplomats, Velthor said slowly, you sent warriors who know how to talk. We sent hunters who understand civilization, John Carter corrected gently. There's a difference. Warriors fight because it's their nature. Hunters fight because they choose to. We can negotiate just as well as we can fight. Better, actually. Fighting is expensive and messy. We prefer to avoid it when possible. Lisa Morgan added, but when diplomacy fails, when threats emerge, when someone needs to handle a problem that talking can't solve, then yes, we know how to take action. That's why the pirate situation was resolved so quickly. That's why the negotiations went the way they did. That's why John won the hunt of proving. Greg Walsh leaned back in his chair. The council needed predators who understood civilization. You needed people who could handle security threats, but also participate in governance. You needed species who could be both dangerous and diplomatic. That's what humans are. Amy Peterson's voice was quiet but firm. We're not here to conquer you. We're not here to dominate the council or impose our will on others. We just want to be treated fairly. We want Earth to have a voice in galactic affairs. We want to trade and learn and grow alongside other species. Ryan Blake added, but we also won't be victims. We won't accept unfair terms. We won't let others push us around just because we're new. Earth has learned some hard lessons over our history. One of those lessons is that respect must be earned and sometimes defended. Kate Sullivan finished the thought. So yes, we're hunters. We're predators. We understand violence and conflict and all the dark things that civilizations try to hide. But we also understand cooperation and compromise and building something better together. We can be both because humans have always been both. John Carter raised his glass. To the Council, and to Earth's place in it. May we always choose diplomacy first. May we always look for peaceful solutions. And may we only hunt when all other options have failed. The 6 humans stood to leave. They moved in their familiar formation, alert and ready, but also relaxed and friendly. They nodded to other diners. They smiled at passing servers. They looked like exactly what they claimed to be. Diplomats who happened to be very, very dangerous. Velthor sat alone at the table for a long time after they left. He thought about everything they had revealed. The council had invited humanity, thinking they were accepting a weak, young species. A species that would be grateful for guidance and protection. A species that could be managed and controlled. Instead, they had added apex predators to their ranks. Predators smart enough to understand politics. Predators patient enough to study their prey before striking. Predators civilized enough to choose cooperation over conflict. He thought about the way John Carter had moved through the pirate base, the way Lisa Morgan had gathered intelligence on every council member, the way Amy Peterson could kill someone from a mile away but chose healing instead. The way all 6 of them carried themselves with absolute confidence, never afraid, never hesitant, always ready. Earth had not sent their best diplomats. They had sent their best hunters who also happened to be excellent diplomats. And the galaxy was better for it, even if that truth was terrifying. Velthor pulled out his personal datapad and made a note in his journal. Today, I learned the truth about humans. They are persistence hunters who evolved into apex predators. They survived by never giving up, never backing down, and never accepting defeat. They built civilization on top of that foundation, but they never forgot what they are underneath. He paused, then added one more line. The council invited them here thinking we were doing them a favor. I think it might be the other way around. We needed them more than they needed us. We just didn't know it yet. Velthor looked out at the swirling purple gases of the star and thought about the future. Earth was fully integrated into the council now. Human ships traveled freely through galactic space. Human traders did business in 100 ports. Human scientists collaborated with researchers from dozens of species. And 6 humans in business suits sat in an office on Helios Station, attending meetings and negotiating agreements and maintaining perfect diplomatic courtesy. But everyone who worked with them knew the truth now. Everyone understood what lay beneath those suits. The galaxy had a new apex predator, one that preferred talking to fighting, one that built alliances instead of empires, one that wore suits and smiled and negotiated in good faith, but one that could hunt when necessary. And that made all the difference. Krethnal approached John Carter as medics checked him over. How? The Thex commander asked simply. John Carter looked up at him. On Earth, humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're not the fastest or strongest predators, but we never stop. We track our prey until it can't run anymore. That's what makes us apex predators. Not strength, endurance. He stood slowly, every muscle protesting. Your species evolved to be ambush predators. You're built for short, explosive attacks. But humans? We're built for the long chase. We're the species that ran prey to death on the African savanna. That razorback never had a chance because I never let it rest. Krethnal looked at this small, exhausted human and finally understood. The Theks were warriors. Humans were hunters. There was a difference. A disabled its systems and captured its entire leadership. 0 casualties on either side. When council ships arrived to take custody of the prisoners, they found the station secured and the pirates sitting in their own holding cells. John Carter handed over Zixtal personally. Velthor stared at the 6 humans in amazement. "How did you do this?" Lisa Morgan smiled. "On Earth, we have lots of experience dealing with organized crime, corporate espionage, black ops. This was actually easier than some boardroom takeovers we've seen." The council fleet took the pirates into custody. The humans returned to Helios Station. The pirate problem that had plagued the council for 43 years was solved in 2 weeks. Every hand went up. Some quickly, some slowly, but all of them rose. "The motion passes unanimously," Velthor announced. "Welcome to the Council, Earth, as full and equal members." John Carter nodded. "Thank you. We look forward to a long and productive partnership." The humans gathered their data pads and left the chamber in their usual formation. Silent, controlled, dangerous. Velthor watched them go and realized the truth. Earth had not sent diplomats to negotiate. They had sent hunters to the table, and the council had been the prey all along. The council had invited them here thinking they were accepting a weak, young species that would be grateful for guidance. Velthor was beginning to think they had invited predators into the fold. Predators smart enough to wear suits and smile. Predators patient enough to study their prey before striking. He looked out his window at the human ship, still docked at the station, dark and silent and waiting. Tomorrow the negotiations would begin. The council would offer their standard terms. They would test these humans, see how desperate they were, how much they would accept. Velthor had a feeling the council was in for a surprise.